Great. Well, on behalf of DPLA, welcome to our webinar today. This is the third of our Wikipedia for Cultural Heritage webinar series, organized by the DPLA Wikimedia Working Group. My name is Dominic Bird McDevitt, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement for DPLA. So just some housekeeping at the top. This is a Zoom meeting, not a webinar. So there will be time at the end for discussion, and you can feel free to come off mute for that, but also please feel free to use the chat for questions or comments during the presentation. The meeting will be recorded. You are not on the recording if you use the chat, and you will be able to find the recording on YouTube, on the DPLA YouTube channel in a few days. And we actually have a playlist where you can find the prior two webinars in this series as well. And I also want to thank the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for providing support for DPLA's Wikimedia program with assistance from the Wikimedia Foundation. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speakers who both serve on DPLA's Wikimedia Working Group. So first we have Jamie Flood, who is our working group chair and is also the scholarly communication librarian / assistant professor at Butler University, and Christine Fernsibner-Eslau, who's metadata technologies program manager for Harvard Library Information and Technical Services. So welcome, Jamie.
Thanks, Dominic. So both Christine and I and the Wikimedia Working Group recognize that edit-a-thons often sound like a really daunting event, but we wanted to kind of demystify them and share experiences and guides and best practices that can make editing an easy engagement opportunity for institutions contributing to Wikimedia Commons through DPLA. And we have a poll up if you all would be interested in answering. We would appreciate it just to know like if we should have more like this. And we do have two more events coming up. I believe they're the second Thursday of each month. We'll have one in December and one in January. I have been organizing and supporting Wikipedia editing events for almost a decade, and I have worked the process of organizing events into an accessible and hopefully easy opportunity to engage community members with cultural heritage collections. Christine has been engaging library colleagues in Wikidata for almost a decade and incorporating Wikidata into metadata workflows and facilitating opportunities for communities to collaborate. Our hope today is kind of to talk about what different edit-a-thons look like. They don't have to just be on Wikipedia. We're going to look at different event types and styles, how to handle the work list and tracking, how to have metrics to report back, and best practices for outreach and how to ensure you meet interested community members. And that includes experienced Wikipedians. And so again, why host an edit-a-thon? We're going to talk about event goals, how to pick what type of format you need, and what's involved in making an edit-a-thon happen. And then finally, our best practices that we've found to kind of have a successful event. So why would you even want to host an edit-a-thon? Um, Edit-a-thons are really about engagement and exploration. They're a great way to get new people to your institution and have them engage. And it's a great way to find new opportunities for those who are already invested. Especially here in Indianapolis, we work with a lot of cultural heritage institutions that contribute to DPLA. Edit-a-thons have been a great way for older supporters. I'm so sorry. Sorry if you could hear that. It was like our security system. Everything is okay. It's just a dying battery. Um, it's been a great way to get older folks involved who maybe can't make it on site as often or can't do like more heavy lifting things. Instead, they're doing heavy lifting online for you. Um, it's a way for folks, again, like I'm saying, it's a great way for folks who can't physically be there to interact with content and collections of the institution. I do feel like I harp pretty hard on the digital aspect of it, on the virtual aspect of it, but I also find that in this era we're in after COVID, people are also very interested in coming to a place as well and actually getting hands-on experiences with collections. And an editathon can be about whatever you want. It can be useful beyond programming. You can have attendees come and check copyright for items. You can have them create metadata through Wikidata. They can add important missing information to records. They can update captions for DPLA uploads. And they can even edit depict statements. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. I'm going to talk more about what a depict statement is in just a moment. And they can add institutional resources to Wikipedia articles, and that can include using your media that's been uploaded and adding it to related articles, or that can also mean things like adding, like, you know, collection of this person is held at Butler University, or a collection of this person's records are held at Cleveland Public Library, or something like that. Um, And it's just a great way to, and it can be both physical and digital. That's another thing that I think is really important. This is an opportunity even for things, mostly for things that have already been uploaded to Commons, but also things that haven't been uploaded yet or things that haven't been digitized. And I'm going to talk more about it. Edit-a-thons are a great way to create learning opportunities within the community where the GLAM is based, especially on local history. It's a great way for people to connect and learn more about where they're from. It allows community members to create their historical their historical narratives, and to increase representation of that narrative on Wikipedia. Um, I think that's one of the most important things about Wikipedia is it is a way for people to see themselves in the world, even when they're in a small community or when they're in an underrepresented community or anything like that. And it's also a great way just for people to form connections too. We, especially here, our student workers that we've worked with for a long time, they've become such good friends and they come together to the events. And I love seeing it as an opportunity not just to engage with our institutional collections, but also to just see and meet other people. And it's such a great way to figure out what people are interested in. Um, I think it's really great when you haven't had one before to kind of have an exploratory one just to see what's going to work in your community and what kinds of things people are really interested in. So, Christine and I are going to share a couple different examples of successful edit-a-thons. Some of them are going to be really basic, some of them are going to be more in depth, and we'll kind of share with you how those worked. One of my favorite ones is a one lib, one ref. And while that is an invitation to librarians to participate in Wikipedia, I think this is also just a great format for anyone. And all it means is that one librarian creates one reference. And it can be to something in your collection, it can just be to a more reliable source. There's a tag on Wikipedia that says citation needed. And the whole goal of this is to help remove those and add reliable sources. The reason why this is such a easy lift is it's task focused. All you're worrying about is teaching someone how to add a reference to Wikipedia. You're not going to worry about anything else about editing Wikipedia. And it can be thematic, or you can focus on, for example, this one was on Afrofuturism. And the great thing about it was I just did a one-page reference. The last section of this page was just a step-by-step how to make a citation on Wikipedia. So we didn't do any training. It was an hour-long event. We had 13 people come, and I think we all did at least 2 references, and everyone had so much fun. And I did include so I did make a list, which I'll show you all later in a spreadsheet, where I expressly mentioned like this author has a book mentioned, but there's no reference for it. Let's find a credible reference for it. And so just easy things like that to help people identify what were some like thematic usages of this. So I really like One Lib One Ref. Happy to share this one-page document with anyone that's interested in it. You can edit it to be about just One Lib One Ref or whatever you want it to be. I should also mention all the images in this presentation were either taken by myself and Christine, or they are available under a CC license on Commons. And this picture of Octavia Butler um, is from Wikipedia. So another great one, and this one I recognize requires more lift than One Lib One Ref, is also scan-a-thons. If you find like a photograph collection, or for example, Benjamin Harrison House just found like a cache of letters from Harrison's wife. A scan-a-thon, especially if you have the equipment, or the ability to trust people if they use like a scanning app on their phone, which sometimes they work better than I think they will. This is a great opportunity to digitize items and to share skills. It's also something that could be more coordinated, and um, maybe it's not an open community format. Maybe it's inviting a local class of library students or something like that. Um, you can do multiple things with this. You can have some folks scanning if they have a scanner or two available. You can have other folks who then take this scan and add and create metadata to it. And then you can have someone else who's adding captions or context. I think that's the big thing that I hope you'll take away from this. I love a classic edit-a-thon where you do lots of things and teach lots of things. But I also, maybe even more so, love a single task focus. People seem to like that, and a lot of times once they master that task, they're more willing to keep going and doing other things. And I think that's the magic of keeping people interested. Another great thing that can be done is updating depict statements. Depict statements are like metadata. And on Wikimedia Commons, we refer to it as structured data, and they are linked to Wikidata. And what depict statements are doing is you're just telling what this picture depicts. That being said, obviously this picture depicts a lot of things. Like we have some famous composers in the little bubble. Um, we like if we knew this style of dress, we can mention that. This does say it's from Lindenberg player piano. Unfortunately, Lindenberg wasn't in Wikidata from what I could find. So instead I just put that this depicted a player piano. The reason why adding depict statements matters is it helps people find these images in Wikimedia Commons. It will help them surface better in Google as well. And so depict statements, again, a super easy one skill editing that you can do, where you can just give everyone a list of all of your different categories and commons, all of your um, insert institutional name, uh, what is it? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Your institutional name and your contributions to Wikipedia. And they can just go through and add depict statements. A lot of them don't have them already associated. And so this is really helpful. And if you're using a tool like View It, which I might talk a little bit more about, it'll help ensure that people find them when they're looking for like a picture of a player piano or a picture of an architectural style or whatever kinds of things you're putting on Commons. And now I will pass it to Christine.
Thanks, Jamie. In 2021, I co-hosted a virtual edit-a-thon to create Wikidata items representing bands, music venues, and other entities related to the Arthur Friedman Collection, which is an archival collection of audio and video at Harvard's Loeb Music Library. The material consists of live recordings of rock shows with an emphasis on the Boston punk scene from the 1970s through early 2000s. So this was a big undertaking, and most edit-a-thons are not as heavy a lift as this. But like it might seem like too long and too much for like an event right now, but it was a 2-day virtual event, and that was really welcome during lockdown. And so we had music enthusiasts, Wikimedia folks, and librarians from like around the world, and they got something substantial done while sharing playlists and saying, "You were at that show. I was at that show too." So it was really wonderful to see the connections that they made. And this was definitely not a one simple task kind of edit-a-thon, but we gave people suggested Wikidata properties to use for the items they were creating or editing. And we made it clear that if they simply added, very bare minimum statements like for like an individual band, if they added a statement that said this band has works in this collection, that was meaningful and that was a contribution. And it was a great way to teach people both like an intro to Wikidata, also an intro to finding aids. We've made people look at finding aids, incredible. And to also make them realize that, they can make these very small contributions that are meaningful, and that they don't, they don't have to complete a robust description of an item. Like they don't own the item. It's not their responsibility. It's a collective responsibility. So that was really cool. And recently, we applied a very similar approach to creating Wikidata items related to the Black Teacher Archive at Harvard's Graduate School of Education in multiple in-person events. Next slide. And it turns out that the edit-a-thon concept can facilitate collaboration on kind of any sort of well-defined task. Your goals don't have to be about working with a Wikimedia project directly. The most recent series of events I co-hosted were about researching dates and copyright status for a collection of political buttons digitized by the Harvard Kennedy School. While one of our long-term goals is to contribute these to Wikimedia Commons, we first have to meet the pretty high bar for open licensing that's set by Wikimedia. So this entailed designing a new item-by-item process for researching copyright for each button separately. And originally, this was like an intern workflow, and it was kind of hard to do with like a small group of people. And so we broke it up into 2 different tasks, and we created 2 different events for this, one of them in person and one of them virtual. And so that, we had new people coming in, trying out like what was a much more focused and sort of shorter term task. And we actually surpassed the goals we'd set for both of these edit-a-thons, the research-a-thon and the copyright-a-thon. And it was a really great experience. And it was the first time I'd applied the edit-a-thon format to something that wasn't Wikimedia related. And I was surprised at how well it worked. Next slide. So when you're planning an edit-a-thon, you'll want to articulate your goals to yourself and to your collaborators or stakeholders early on in the planning process. You might think that a specific tangible outcome is the first thing that comes to mind, like creating or expanding Wikipedia pages about a defined list of subjects, for example. But it's worth thinking about what else you and your participants should be getting out of the experience. Maybe your goal is to grow Wikimedia skills in your community, or build copyright literacy, or to give enthusiastic library users a chance to dive deeply into the contents of an underexposed collection. The tangible outcomes are always in the participants' hands, like not yours. They can choose to use the tools you're giving them at the pace that they're going to do that. But if you design an event with intention and focus, that makes a big difference. Jamie and I are both, as Jamie mentioned earlier, we're pretty big proponents of focusing on a single task or skill and then providing motivation and context. Most participants will benefit from focus and structure, and the ones who want to go beyond that just need a launching off point. You can't stop them. So getting clear about what you're hoping to achieve will help you to flesh out your plans, get ahead of inviting guest speakers if that's what you want to do to provide context, to think about how you'll assess the outcomes, and identify who your target audience is, which matters even if you're planning a fully public event that anybody can come to. Next slide. Jamie, I think this is you.
There we go. Sorry. Okay. I don't know why my computer is not happy forwarding slides today. So obviously there are multiple ways that you can go about this. You can be in person, you can be fully virtual, you can have a hybrid event. Each type has its strength, and it really depends on what do you want to do, what kind of resources do you have, and who are you trying to reach. I will say that all of these can be free. Like, I think that's the most important thing to remember is all of these are free event opportunities. You don't have to spend money on any of them. Um, I will say later, sometimes spending a little bit of money is worth it, especially if you can like have snacks if it's in person. People love a good sticker moment or a button. So if you do have some opportunity for spending money, I think that's really important. I always add that caveat because I previously worked at the Department of Agriculture, and every event we did was free. The only time our speakers were always very generous with their time, and we only had one that we paid at one that we did an honorarium for, and it was because it was to the Office of General Counsel, and I was like, "You guys have more money than we do. You're gonna pay an honorarium." So in person, this is really good for productive work. If you want to scanning, it's a good way to meet the community, to have people come in and see your physical collections. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm seeing is people really want to connect, in person, and they want to connect with our collections physically. While it's wonderful to have virtual access, sometimes people still just want to see things in person. Um, it's also a good opportunity for learning like a very key skill, and especially if you can have a couple people who are very well versed in that skill, they can work with people one-on-one. No matter what type of event, just like with any classroom, people are going to get it at different paces. And you'll have some people who get it very quickly and just run off, and you'll have some people who maybe won't get it that day, and that's also okay. Um, I think the most important thing in all of these is to hopefully have someone who can provide some kind of live training or demo, but then additionally having some kind of written down training information as well. That is the biggest thing is while people love a live demo, they also love having something to refer to later when they maybe want to try again at home. Some people feel kind of shy in a shared space and might be waiting to go home to do it too. So that's the other aspect. Hybrid is great. I always mention hybrid because for me at USDA, the number of people that came to the event mattered a lot. And hybrid is truly the best way to get the most people, especially if you cast a broad outreach net. The only thing is that hybrid really requires capability that not everyone has. A big enough Zoom room, or a similar platform for everyone to meet on, or to meet in the room where you're having your in-person event. And of course, they need to be able to, if not see the whole room, see whomever is speaking, and then be able to hear online participants. Our main room at Butler for events, you actually can't hear online participants. And so we were trying to host a virtual, um, excuse me, a virtual panel in there the other day, and it did not work, and I did not realize it. And of course, longer events, it's good to have some kind of texting platform like Slack or Discord, especially because the longer chat gets in Zoom, the harder it is to keep up with. And so having a secondary platform like Slack or Discord is really helpful to help organize the conversation. And then lastly is virtual. Obviously, that's going to be the easiest. You can do it from your office. The only thing is it does require that all your resources be online. Whatever collection they work with also needs to be online. And again, other things to think about outside of what type is, how much money do you have? Can you spend money? Like I said, you don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. I do find it is helpful sometimes if you can, though. And of course, considering what kind of capacity you have, it's always been important for us to have registration. Um, which you can do that through Eventbrite, which Eventbrite still offers free accounts. They stopped for a while, and I think so many people left the platform that they went back to it. So Eventbrite is a free opportunity for registration, just because you do want to be clear about how much capacity you have, if it is in person, or how much capacity you have online, because maybe you have a Zoom room, but maybe you only have a 75-person capacity or something like that. And so on these platforms, you can set your capacity size, and then once you reach it, no more tickets will be sold and no one else can come. I do recommend in that case going over a little bit, at least by 5. Even when I have registration, I typically see 50 to 75% of people show up. Very rarely is it 100%. And when it gets close to 100%, I freak out because, oh my God, this topic is really interesting to you, and I'm so excited that you're here. I mention attendance needs on here because, again, like I was talking about with hybrid things at NAL, there was a big expectation around how many people were going to show up. And I had a limit that I was supposed to reach each time. So I think that's it really depends on the expectation of your institution. And if you do have an attendance expectation, I do recommend considering something hybrid, because that's the best way to get as many people as possible. And so I decided I want to have an event. What do I need to do now? Obviously, figure out what type of event it's going to be. Is it going to be online? Is it not? Do you need to figure out institutional buy-in? If you do, reach out to me, and I would be happy to share with you um, other successful events. We can talk about tracking. That's the best way, I think, to show institutional buy-in. Is you would be amazed by the amount of work that a small group of people can do, especially when they're dedicated and excited. And then, of course, I think having a robust outreach plan is very important. And that includes some social media, that includes sending out emails to stakeholders, to, like, if you have a friends of the library group, or if you have some other kind of supportive thing. I also send out a lot of listserv emails to topic dedicated listserv. So when I used to do agriculture stuff, I would send things out to nutrition listservs when it was about nutrition. I would send out food safety things to food safety organizations and stuff like that. If you have something that's very topic specific like that, I think it's worth it to reach out to organizations that are interested in that. And you would be surprised by how many folks you will get. And I also recommend a calendar invite. When it comes to outreach, my workflow is creating a calendar invite first, creating an Eventbrite, or however people are going to register for it. And then using those two things, I'll create a social media, usually a graphic, or I'll write up a post. And then I will just keep sharing the same picture and writing the whole time. Don't rethink it every single time. It's not worth it. And I also write I write a formulaic email, where I just take out like the name that it's going to, and I'll add information related to the audience that I'm sending it to. And then you'll want to create your work list. In the next couple slides, I'll show you what that could look like. And you'll want to understand how you're going to track it. Again, I'm going to show you more about that in just a moment. And then how do you want to do the training? Is it going to be in person, or are you just going to do virtual resources? I am a proponent of both. I do have a list on here of resources that you can use. I think your best opportunity is to have a couple people in person who can walk everyone through, and then just show live demonstrations of what you're doing, and then also having virtual resources. At some of our smaller events, I have just done virtual resources, and that worked very well, but I still had to help people consistently and do some hand-holding and stuff on more complicated things. So I think even if you go just the virtual resource route, even if everyone is there in person, or like you print the guides out that I'm going to share with you, you'll still want to be able to answer people's questions. So there's a couple different ways to track. On Wiki, I think the best thing to do is to use the outreach dashboard, which is what this is. This is just an example of what it looks like. Our Pride events are something we've been doing annually since 2023, and they are our best attended events. Or some of our best attended events, and we keep the topics very broad for what it is. The topic is literally anything that has to do with our LGBTQ plus folks in Indianapolis. And so that includes icons, that includes LGBTQ plus serving institutions and organizations, that includes like the history of Pride in Indianapolis, and stuff like that. And in 2024, we actually had so much interest that we did it twice. And so when you set this up, really easy, you put in your description, you add in all your facilitators, you can put your institutional name, you'll put all the different wikis that you'll track on. We usually track on Wikipedia, Wikidata, and Commons. You can have a passcode if you want. And then you can create a campaign where you can track all of your events together. So these are my statistics for one event. We made 3 articles. We edited an additional 20. There was a total of 149 edits. There were 10 editors. We added 33 references, and we have over 715K views of the articles that were edited. This is what tracking our whole program looks like. So this is our Central Indiana Wikipedia partnership, which liaises with our DPLA organizations, contributing organizations here in Indy. And we have done 17 programs overall, and this is over the course of 3 or 4 years. We've had 190 editors total. We've added 736 references. Like, this is all very cool. These are the kinds of things that I like to show people for institutional buy-in, just to show like these are 17 programs. We had them over 3 years, which is kind of a lot of programs in 3 years, but it's had a lot of impact. You know, the things that we've added have been viewed over 6 million times. Like, where else are you going to get that kind of impact? And then there's another dashboard called Event Metrics. I haven't used it as much, but for Event Metrics, you'll start your program. I have 2, and obviously I haven't put everything in on these. I was more like playing with it to see what it would look like. So I have my National Agricultural Library program, and then I have the Central Indiana Wikipedia Partnership. And then when you click into that, it will show you all of your different programs, and you can kind of compare and see. I said Pride is our most regularly attended one, but our Hoosier Woman at Work one in 2024 was really awesome, and we had a lot of people there for that one as well. And like I said, you never know what's going to be popular. I feel like you need to just keep trying and you'll figure it out. And then you can click on these, or no, sorry. Yeah, you can click on these and then it will show you a breakdown. This is from our previous Wiki Loves Pride in 2023. We made 7 pages that year and had 9 participants. So it really depends on who's there and how squirrely they're feeling. And so sometimes you'll get way more pages created. And it, like I said, it just depends on who's there. We had a lot of new people in 2024 than we had in 2023. And so that's part of why we did so much more in 2024. But that's just how you kind of go through and look at these. This is your best way to have metrics and to look at and keep track of like who's coming to your events and stuff like that. If you want something a little more low tech, you can do an on-wiki event page, which is what this is. My best advice, if you want to do this, is to email me for a link and I'll give you a link, and then you just copy and paste the code and replace replace the text with whatever you need. And as you scroll down, like you'll have an area, I forgot to capture this part, but you do have an area where folks can sign in with their username. And if you don't want to use the to me, the dashboard is very confusing for new editors. And if I'm already teaching them something new, I don't want them to also deal with the dashboard. So a lot of times what I personally end up doing is I'll have an event page and then I'll have them do the scroll down to sign in with their username. And then during the event or afterwards, I will go to the dashboard and add them in myself. And then it takes usually a day, and then it will populate with all the edits that they did during the set time of the event. So I highly recommend that. And then I wanted to show that for this one, instead of having an on wiki user list, we actually used a spreadsheet. And unfortunately, I couldn't access this spreadsheet anymore to show you what that looked like. But basically, it was like who the person was, their birth and death dates, where they were born, where they died, and then it had the coordinates of their plot, which was like the actual like longitudinal and latitude of like where they're buried, and then it also had their in the cemetery coordinates like plot section 14 plot 6 or whatever, and then we kind of worked together to decide how we wanted to do that. For more well-known people, we included their coordinates and their info boxes. For less well-known people, we just mentioned in the final paragraphs of their article that they were buried in Crown Hill along with other information about their death. I mentioned our one lib, one ref work list. This is what a work list can look like in a spreadsheet. I highly recommend just doing a spreadsheet. It's very simple. Obviously, this is super easy. I have the article name, I have the link. I could combine those if I really wanted to. And then I have the need, and then always, always, always have a column where the person puts their name. And that just signals to each other, hey, I'm working on this one, like move it along, move along to the next one. So again, really easy. And the nice thing is with a Google spreadsheet in particular is you can make the link so that anyone with the link can access it, and then you can put it on Wikipedia. Additionally, you can change the access afterwards if you don't want it to forever be accessible on Wikipedia. And then I was gonna put these all at the end, but I was like, man, I'm talking about them now. Let me just put them let me just put them here. These are all the links for everything I talked about, the outreach dashboard, the event metrics dashboard. I also included some other tools that we've talked about in other presentations that we've done if you just want to do like mass editing and stuff like that on Wikipedia. And then I also shared some different guides and editing modules. The first three are all ones that I created. I have I don't remember the best way to say this. I have gifted them to the public domain, so you may use them however you wish. And you can feel free to edit them or feel free to ask me to edit it. They're always changing a little bit. And then I went and found some other training modules, Wiki Ed and things like that. And so fingers crossed, I think this is everything you would need to host an edit-a-thon. And it's all here in this slide. And obviously we will share these with everyone. And I will pass it back to Christine.
I think I will say that that is more than everything you need, or it's what you need to host like several different edit-a-thons, which is fantastic. So I just wanted to give like, if you haven't been to an edit-a-thon, I just wanted to give you like sort of like, here's the shape of what an event like this is like, just to wrap it up. Obviously, every event is different, but you might want to consider the following elements and suggested order of operations, and then adapt it as you see fit. As we said before, like first pick a single task or skill that you want to focus your event on. It doesn't mean that fast learners or expert Wikimedians in your midst can't go above and beyond, but it'll help everybody to contribute to a core goal, simplify the instructions you're preparing, and make starting up take less of your event time. one of like the tensions in planning these events is always like the length of time that it takes to give people the information they need to proceed confidently versus how overeager everyone is to get started, and they're like, why are you still talking to me? I just want to edit. So it's yeah, so having a lot of focus will help you to sort of like strike that balance correctly. You'll want to provide a friendly space. That could be virtual, that could be physical. You might want to provide snacks if you're in person. If you're virtual, providing a thematic playlist is often appreciated as a way to keep people sort of feeling connected. Handouts or links that participants can refer to. Jamie mentioned this earlier, just like having something that they can go back to, especially if they're like shy about asking questions, can mean a lot. I don't learn well from videos, but I have learned from holding edit-a-thons that other people primarily learn from watching short videos. So take that into consideration, even if that's not your learning style. And you'll also want to provide volunteers to answer questions or identify problems. The sample schedule might start with a presentation about your collection or topic, followed by a live demo of the task you're asking participants to engage in. Showing how to do the work in step-by-step detail might feel like overkill, but my experience has been that it isn't. You can reserve time for Q&A at that point, but most of the questions that matter will come when participants try out the task for themselves and encounter specific real examples. After that, the bulk of your event should be collaborative work time. And this can feel scary because, like, I think if you plan events, you're thinking about like, I want to give people content. I want to entertain them. I want to like be having dialogue with them. But actually, you kind of just have to let go at this point and let people do their thing. And that's often where the magic happens, which is weird because it feels like you're doing the least at that time. As a host or organizer. So you can break up collaborative work time by checking in with the room to see how it's going, showing a visualization of your collective progress, or you can just encourage everyone to stretch and grab a snack. Most importantly, before wrapping up, you want to make sure to give everyone a chance to share what they've learned and interesting information they've encountered, and congratulate everyone on their great work. Next slide. I think while people are thinking of questions, Dominic, do we want to share the results of the poll that we did at the beginning?
Yeah, and I also wanted to add, sorry. Um, one thing I keep forgetting to say is that having some kind of presentation is such a big draw, especially if it can be about like local history or someone who is well versed on the topic. It doesn't have to be a guest speaker. It can be someone from the institution who's just passionate about that. People love that, even if it's just about like the institutional collection or the history of it. And it's important to mention what kind of skill they're going to learn in the description. I find that when we're very transparent about what we'll cover and what we're going to do, we get more people that way because then they know exactly what to expect. And like just to kind of piggyback off of what Christine was saying, a lot of times when I have questions during an event, I'll just turn that into an opportunity to do a live demo because that really helps people. Because especially if like you can kind of walk through and say like, oh, this is the part that I used to struggle with. Or if it helps them to see, oh, someone else is also struggling with this. I don't feel comfortable saying anything. But sometimes like talking about it and walking them through it, it gives people, excuse me, it gives people an opportunity to be like, oh, I feel more comfortable now. Let me tell you about what's happening on my end so I can ask you a question about it. And so that's, I think, the best time for questions. It kind of feels like you're not doing a lot, but it's such a good opportunity to get questions from people and then use it as an opportunity to do live demos.
Great. Yeah. And Christine, I don't know if other folks can see this, but I'll just read out the results because we had, it looks like pretty much everybody answered the poll. 11 out of the 21 said curiosity was your reason for being here. And then an even split for the other two options. 5 for I attended an edit-a-thon and I've been chasing that high ever since, and 5 for I want to host an edit-a-thon. So hopefully with all of you that joined just out of curiosity, that you've gained some new motivation. And if anyone has any more specific questions, please feel free to put them in the chat.
And please email me. If you use OneNote, I think I still have it. I have like a step-by-step guide that I can send you where I have it organized for everything that every event I did at NAL was organized in the exact same way. I am trying to figure out how to turn it into a Google Doc now that you can do tabs in Google, because that's the biggest reason why we used OneNote is you could separate out the sections. And yeah, I'm happy to share that with you all. For those that don't know, I've done a lot of work with Montana State University, and they have, yeah, Mel's here. Mel has successfully used that guide multiple times now and is using it again. And Mel has made a one-page version, so I'll get that from her and share it with you all. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with all of this is just keeping track of everything that you're planning to do somewhere and writing a lot of formulaic things to make your life easier. I definitely don't feel like you need to rewrite everything every single time you send out a message. People usually just need a reminder. Hey, sorry. My dog was sitting on my child's present, and so I had to tell him to stop. All right, any questions? It's okay if you don't have any. We gave you a lot of information.
Was any of it useful? I'd love to I'd love to hear if anybody found like some specific part of this helpful or if it sparked any ideas.
I will ask a question, but I was wondering if you could share more about like common pitfalls or maybe things to avoid. I know like one of the potential problems is newcomers kind of biting off more than they could chew, or not, interacting with the community or knowing how to interact with the community, things like that.
I think one thing that, like, this is maybe not the answer that you're looking for, but I think one thing that I've encountered, maybe because a lot of my events have involved other librarians, is often people don't know when to stop. Like, if they choose a really difficult item, giving them clear guidelines about like when to like check that box and keep going, or like if you cannot find this information, make a note in the spreadsheet and then move on with your life. That's actually like usually the hardest part, like to encourage people to like not like, not chip away at something that, doesn't, that isn't like yielding results. That's often the thing that seems to be the biggest potential pitfall that I've run into.
Same. I am not a very decisive person, but when I am at an event, I become a very decisive person. When I have someone that I can tell is like stuck on something, I am ready to be like, move on. Not worth it. Because it really just depends. Because I guess sometimes I personally do get stuck because I'll so badly want to write an article about someone and I'll finally just have to give up because I realize that they won't pass the notability threshold. Um, Chelsea, hi Chelsea, has a question for us. How would you suggest reaching out to more experienced Wikimedians to invite them to events for institutions that don't already have connections? I think that is a great question. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I have been cold emailed, and I love it every single time. So if you know of someone, but you don't know them personally, you should just email them and see what happens. Um, and feel free to email me. And if I don't have the capacity to help you, I'll try and find someone else who does. I can say that there is some effort in the US in particular to create some programming and support for locations and institutions that maybe don't have a lot of known editors, to create support for them. And I would be happy to guide you towards those people until like that becomes better known. Um, Additionally, there is an organization called WikiEd or WikiEDU. Um, is it WikiEd or is it?
It's WikiEDU, and
Yeah, there we
they've
go.
been a huge help. Like when we first started doing things, it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, Will Kent, please save me. And that really made a huge difference.
Yeah, and I'm actually not I'm becoming like a known teacher for them. Um, so I highly recommend it. I just put the link in the chat, and the link is also um on our slides as well. But that's the best place. If you don't feel comfortable cold emailing someone, just reach out to WikiEDU and they'll guide you. They're great like that.
And one piece of advice that's really specific to Wikidata that I will offer up is in the resources that we listed, one of them was the LD4 Wikidata Affinity Group, which has like project series and has had working hours in the past. They're like tiny edit-a-thons that are like a great sort of reference for like, how might you do this? But aside from like the resources that they share, if you show up to any of their meetings or like working hours or project series, it's a good place to connect with other people who are interested in doing this sort of thing collaboratively, and who are also like very much embedded in libraries, so they'll understand where you're coming from. And so they're a great resource and a great place to connect with people who are pretty experienced.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I want to point out too, not to put Mel on the spot again, but I started working with Mel also in 2023, 24. And she has gone on to do like a once a month kind of little meetup. Mel, can you share a little bit more about that? I think that's another great thing that has come, that's a good opportunity.
Sure, I'd be happy to share. So we're doing, I actually have one today, a meetup. And I've just been setting up a little hour and a half, come edit with us or learn how to edit. They have been all attended very slightly, but with different people. We've been able to reach out to a number of new faculty members on campus to teach them either how to edit or how they can use editing in their classroom. I've had additional librarians and colleagues come in. And it's just kind of slowly gaining also an emailing list for events about Wikipedia. It grows a little longer each time. So, save the dates for the bigger events like the edit-a-thons can go out with a larger interest group. And this was the first year that we're doing those. And we'll just kind of keep plugging along and hope that people know that the library is the place to come for Wikipedia information.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot, Mel, and thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Any other questions?
Great. I think with no further questions, we'll give you your 4 minutes back. And thank you so much to Christine and Jamie for your presentation today.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Christine.
Bye.